Hello, hello. This is On Imagination with the Ethical Asshole. I am your host, the Salty Bitch. So I love the title of this video. I have to say it, the Esoteric Ethical Journey versus the Exoteric Path of Bullshit, or the spiritual knockoff of the ethical journey. This is something that I have been struggling with for about 5 years now. It was about 4 years ago that I started to dip my toes, 4 years ago that I started to dip my toes into the spiritual world. And I was coming from a life of science. So I was 40 years old, stepping into spirituality for the first time. And I did that. And I'm huge on, if you are going to do something without the bias, you have to fully embrace it and become it. You have to be one with it. So I did that. I went totally like, I embraced it. And I remained open-minded for a solid 4 years. And it was over the last 3 months, really 3 months, that it got too ridiculous. Like, it got to the point where they were just blatantly defying science. And I can do anything until you start to contradict fact and science. That's like flat earthist level. When that happened, I went, I'm out. I tapped out. I'm done. And that really was what it came down to. I wanted to make sure that I had all the data. I wanted to make sure that I was absolutely thorough in my research before I finally got to that point. And I had my work with the ethical journey, and I was trying to figure that out. And I was trying to, like, the ethical journey is one I've been on my whole life. I started it when I was 4 years old, when I asked the question, what is love? And I've been trying to piece it together ever since. So this is not news for me. This is not trending. This was not a spirituality is on the rise and I'm jumping on that wagon. That's not what happened. 1984 and all that implies, I jumped into the world of the ethical journey, and I have been on it, tracking it ever since. So it was, and I was halfway through my healing journey when I decided to step into the spiritual world. And I realized that it was definitely toggling, and what people refer to as spirituality, I call psychological physics. So psychological physics is atomic health. It is physics. It is nuclear physics, and it's ontological physics combined with metaphysics, and then it's also partnered with mathematics and logic. So I had a lot of really awesome shit just coming together, and it was so funny. I just prevented myself from trying to swear because I just got done writing a child's product on my website. So I was in child mode, and I'm like, don't swear. So here I am, just censor yourself. So shit. There, I'm uncensored. So I'm sitting here going through the program, and I'm trying to figure out. For a while, I was thinking spirituality is how are these pieces fitting together? And I finally realized today that the ethical journey, it was like this, and then spirituality just kind of, it was like this, and then spirituality just kind of did this thing. And here's the truth, and spirituality is now going that direction, and it's like, where? And I realized at that point that I can't even call the ethical journey spirituality anymore. I have to literally completely just strip it away because it is so far off in left field now. I'm going, no. They were getting closer, but then they just went off on a massive tangent. So I was talking to somebody this morning, and there was the comment that money is energy. Oh, it's not. No, it's not. That is like saying water is a boat or a boat is water. No, it's not. Money sits in the currency that is energy, but it is not energy. A boat follows the water's current. That does not make the boat the water. So Aristotle did a whole lot of work on what money was, and he referred to it as a placeholder. I agree with Aristotle. Aristotle was educated. So I'm sitting here looking at what energy is. And in physics, we have a lot to say about what energy is. And there's frequency, and then there's energy. They're not the same thing. And there's also atoms, and there's energy that is produced from the proton and the neutron, and force that gives you an electron. The electron is energy, but everything is not energy, because force is not energy, and that has a whole nother set of rules that it lives by that contradicts energy. So energy has its laws of physics, and force has its laws of physics, and they don't match. So I'm sitting here looking at everything, and I can see where molecules generate energy, but those are electrons in the molecules generating the energy. The force is doing its own thing with frequency. So I'm looking at this going, you have force, you have frequency, you have the spiral. But if the spiral isn't working and the EMF goes down, you don't get energy, which is why a lot of us feel drained of energy. Energy and force are not the same thing. So I got to a point where I felt like I was suddenly at the tea party of the Mad Hatter. And I went, okay, I'm done here. I'm tapping out. I'm done. So I closed the door on it this morning, and I realized I'm just going to have to completely recategorize what I've got here for its own thing. And when I did that, this opened like 5 new doors for me. And I went, oh, this is so much easier. So the ethical journey is absolutely, it's extraordinary. It is what Zarathustra was on. It is what Christ was on, Muhammad, Confucius was on this, and it is what Joseph Smith was on. And all 5 of them were like spot on with this work. Pythagoras, Socrates, Plato had the ethical journey. And I was reviewing all of their work this morning, and I was like talking to my lab partner about this, going, what did they do wrong? And I realized that what they did wrong was a lack of vocabulary. The vocabulary just didn't exist back then. And it was interesting because I can't imagine trying to explain ethics without it. I've found a number of new ethics, and they do. You're not born with all the ethics. You have to discover them as you grow. So the more you go through the ethical journey, the more you discover ethics, and the more these ethics compound and build onto each other. And this is what gives you wisdom. So with every level, you get more and more. And when I realized that I was trying to take the ethical journey and compare it next to the spiritual journey, I realized that the contradiction was so ridiculous that it was degrading the quality of the ethical journey. It turned it into a laughingstock. And I realized that at that point that the spiritual journey is literally just a literal knockoff, a cheap, low quality knockoff of the ethical journey. And I went, oh, this is night and day. These are 2 completely different things. And when I talk to people about my work, what I get a lot of is people saying to me, this is what I've been looking for. Holy shit, this is what I've been looking for. And I have 2 kinds of people that come to me. When they find my work, they come in and they're like, this is what I've been looking for. And they fully embrace it. And those are the people who step into the program and they start the ethical journey. And there's 2 people I know of right now who are in the ethical journey, and that's Keanu Reeves. He's in it. And also Jim Carrey. I need to go back on Jim Carrey and follow up to see where he is, but it sounds like he's in the ethical journey. His work is 100% compliant with mine, but I think he's toggling and he's trying to find it, but he's doing it. And sometimes it looks like he might have leaned a little bit into the spiritual, but then he goes back to the ethical journey. And he's got it. He's got a good solid, but Keanu's got this down. He's got it down. He has got this down. You cannot study Buddhism and be inside of Buddhism without getting in this journey. Jay Shetty is in the ethical journey. So I'm sitting here watching, and I love it because I have people where I can say they're at this marker based off of the mathematics. They're at this marker based off the mathematics. And I'm officially at a point where your journey is your personal experience. So I like to just say they speak for themselves. That's what I'm going to say. They speak for themselves. And I can just give you the names and say, watch these 3 people. Watch these 3 people. And if they stray off of what the ethical journey actually is, I know Keanu won't. I know he won't. I don't think Jay will. I don't think Jay will. Like I said with Jim, I have to sit down and watch him a little bit more. But I'm going to leave that there because that's their business. So I'm just going to leave it there and observe, and they will speak what their perspective is. So you can hear what I'm saying. And this is what I strongly encourage you to do. This is called data points. I can give you this is what I'm experiencing. And Keanu can give you one, and Jay Shetty can give you one. So you've got 3 data points now. You really want 4, but there's 3 solid data points. So if you compare Jay Shetty to myself to Keanu Reeves, you'll get 3 data points of what the ethical journey actually is in comparison to spirituality. So that being said, I'm at a point where I'm going, no, I'm all done with this spirituality bullshit because it is a cheap knockoff off of the ethical journey. And I feel real relieved over being able to make that distinction between my work versus the hullabaloo that's going on. That was a real huge. So now that I've established that, I was able to set that aside. And there are qualities and markers that correspond with this. And the best way to explain is there's a lot of characteristics of the ethical journey. And that's what a lot of people are looking for is what are the characteristics? How do I know? And I'm not going to cover that in this video because they are very extensive. And basically, it's a mathematical formula and there's a lot of signs. You are on a growth trial. And that's really what you are doing. You are on a growth trial. And you are looking for your 4 fruits. You are pursuing the deeper meaning of the self. But the deeper meaning of the self is by you practicing the 12 ethics. And when you do the 12 ethics, they keep you oriented on the ethical journey. The Buddhistic religion really does a great job keeping you up to the 7th ethic. But once you reach the 7th ethic, Buddhism stops. And you're going to have to step, like Jay Shetty did and like I did, you're going to have to step outside of Buddhism and continue the journey. So really, I want to say, if you really want to do this, Buddhism is a fantastic place to start the journey, but you have to do Buddhism. And the Buddhism really does give you the solid ethics to begin. But like I said, the other person who did this was a fictional character, the physicist in the show Numbers. He did it the right way. And that was 100%. Whoever wrote that character did his fucking homework. And you get to see exactly what he was doing. I'm going to look up this character's name. It was in the show Numbers. The physicist in show Numbers. Larry Fleinhart. So Dr. Larry Fleinhart, phenomenal character. So you get to see Larry in Numbers, and he shows you. I have to clarify, you get to see Larry before and after his trip to space. When you see his trip before space, this is Larry before the journey. When he comes back, he is in the ethical journey. He is in it. And it's wonderful because he leaves the monastery. So, and that's the same stage where Jay and I were when we left it. So you can see that transformation when he steps out of it. It's beautiful. And this is new. To call it an ethical journey is new. And here's the thing is when you call it spiritual or religious, it completely runs off in a completely different tangent. And that's where a lot of people are getting it like they're confused. And this is why I hate the word spirituality is because it's physics. Physics is literally the feeling or the sensation. Reverse that. Spirituality is the sensation you get from physics. And when you study psychological physics, all the dots connect over into spirituality and you go, oh, and then when you look at atoms and you look at nuclear physics and you look at ontological physics, it all makes sense and it all absolutely links together. When it does that, you understand the world, everything changes. And it's literally all about vocabulary. And the reason why it's about vocabulary is because the vocabulary allows you to literally move and shape. And well, that's it exactly. It allows you to define and cut and shape and carve and mold and sculpt everything that you are exactly looking at. And that allows you to cut and shape your mindset. Literally, you're sculpting your mindset. And people who are spiritual are using the wrong tools. They're using the wrong vocabulary. It's equivalent to them working with Play-Doh in their hands. People who are doing the ethical journey have actually sculpting equipment with mastery in sculpting. Where I'm at, I'm a surgeon. I am a word surgeon. And I have some of the most articulate equipment to cut word into such precise usage that I can sculpt and mold anything with word. And that really hones, carves, and shapes a mindset like a laser so I can really articulate where I want to put something. That's the difference we're talking here. And it's not for everybody. If you want the cheap knockoff, spirituality is there. But if you want to get really, and that's it, this is it right here. It's the ethical journey is spirituality for the people who actually want to do this the right way. It's for people who want to do this with standards, who want the quality of life. They want the bullshit cut out of it. That's what it is. So once I was able to put all that together, I was able to summarize it today and go, oh, it's a complete, we're just talking about the again, we're talking about the ethical standard of literally hodgepodge garbage art or low quality shit versus high quality. We're talking Chef Ramsay versus an easy bake oven. There it is. There it is. Spirituality is the easy bake oven of cooking, whereas the ethical journey is the Chef Ramsay version of cooking. So if you want the easy bake oven, okay. If you want the Chef Ramsay version, ethical journey, night and day, night and day. And that really was what was hitting home. One of the words that I changed today was growth spurt or growth. I had a growth spurt. And I was talking to a dear friend of mine and I was translating everything. I was speaking spiritual language. And then halfway through, I'm like, what the hell am I doing? I'm not 5. I had a growth spurt. And I ascended or I elevated or I leveled up. I like to say level up because I'm a gamer. So I was like, well, I leveled up. And then I'm like, well, I ascended to a higher level. And I hate that because it's so pretentious and condescending. And then I went, what am I doing? It's a fucking growth spurt. I had a growth spurt last night. That's all it is. It's an ethical growth spurt. That's it. You ethically grow. And that's just it. We're talking about growth stages. That's all this is. It's growing. It's just growing. Human beings are supposed to grow. And when you understand in the ethical journey that you have growth stages, you can track your growth stages because it's a mathematical formula. So you're able to track your growth stages. And the further you go along in your growth stages, the more mature you get. The more mature you get, the wiser you get. And the average growth rate is, well, not growth rate, but the average growth stage right now is 4 years old. So you've got a lot of 4-year-olds at the ethical maturity level of a 4-year-old with their easy bake ovens doing their thing. And it's like, okay, but call a duck a duck. You've got an easy bake oven. Don't think you're a chef. Now, over at the ethical stages, it's an understanding of this is a science and this is the esoteric sciences. And that's the difference between the exoteric path and the esoteric path. And we're both talking magic. But the spiritual people are talking about magic in the sense of Harry Potter wands. The esoteric sciences know that magic is math and logic, and we're magi. Big difference. Big difference. So it's this realization, this defining it, and understanding that the quality is a completely different level. And one of the things that really hit home for me today was that at this point, the 3rd, 4th, and 5th ethics are far more relatable than the 6 ethics in the Oasis, because they took that path and they just went so far off into left field. I'm like, wow, they're really like, and suddenly I found myself going from, okay, I spent 4 to 5 years with the spiritual people, and then I went, I'm definitely finding the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5ths far more grounded, spiritually more grounded than the Oasis. So when I had this realization and I realized this was going to completely shift, which I love, as soon as I realized this, it shifts it. And it just clarified a lot for me. It really cleared up a lot. It really did. So, and I had that massive internal ethical dilemma that I'm still working out. Is it unethical to talk about the stages of growth in ethics? No, I don't believe it is. I do not believe it is. And the reason why is because there's no way they're going to learn any other way. And when someone sits there and says, all I can do is tell you what my experience was, and all Keanu can do is tell you his experience, and all Jay Shetty can do is tell you his experience. Now, the three of us can put our data together, look at it, and analyze it, and then we can look for the common denominators. Once we do that, we'll have the ability to sit down and go, okay, this is where we're going with this. Now, I had to work throughout a stage of, is it okay to talk about this? And as a scientist, and this is where my brain is, because I'm a scientist first and foremost. Jay Shetty is not a scientist. He is definitely working toward that, though. The way he approaches things, I'm looking at him going, dude, you're totally like, he's definitely stepping into the world of science. Keanu Reeves is not a scientist, at least not that I know of. And if he is, that's his, I haven't seen anything to express that, so he might be. I don't know. And he's a very private person. I respect that. So I'm sitting over here going, as a scientist, where I am with my science, I'm all about, I have to translate this for people and give this to people. So this is a real ethical dilemma. And it's extraordinary to see how we combat this. Is, do I talk about myself? But I'm not, but the self is the experience. And we have to educate. But how do you do this without arrogance? Arrogance is a refusal to learn. You're doing the opposite here. Are you proud? Are you conceited? Are you boasting? Only if it's not founded. Point. If it's based off of something and it's not for you, it's for their benefit. Yes, true. And it's to nourish them so that they have markers and guidelines. True. Absolutely true. They're not going to know those markers and guidelines if someone's not sitting there telling them about your experience. And I don't have any books that I have books that I'm going by. I'm pulling back from Zarathustra. I read the Gathas. I'm pulling from the Vedics. I'm pulling from, I got books that I'm following. But because my perspective is so unique in my studies, it's giving me a new perspective. So my perspective is one of the tools. So my agenda is that you make this your story. But, and this is huge. If you're going to follow the spiritual path, you do run the risk of contaminating your data. You are going to run the risk of getting the wrong information because you have low quality data. You do run the risk of going off onto way left field because you're no longer grounded. That is something I listened to this one woman. She is native Mexican Native American over in that region. I can't remember if she was on the border. It doesn't really matter. And she was explaining the amount of abuse her culture was raised with because the white people did not permit their spiritual religion, their natural way of life, which is the ethical perspectives. She had the ethical journey. And she was actually speaking out very much against the spiritual people. And I'm right there with her on this, where she was like, they have made a mockery and they've whitewashed and trended my culture. And I'm right there with her going, yeah, I'm over here with the ancient Greeks and the Zarathustra and the philosophers going, this is what it is for philosophy. Now the philosophers, this is 2,700. This is 2,500 BCE. 500 BCE, 2,500 years ago. And her people, they found this naturally over in South America, Central America, and that region. So it's natural for them. It's natural for philosophers. So I'm sitting over here getting the Zarathustra version, the Pythagorean version. She's over there getting her natural version passed down from generation to generation. They match up. And we're both looking at the spiritual people and we're both going, you're a bunch of hacks and you're a disgrace to what this is really about. And one of the things she said, which aligns with what Zarathustra and I said, is they're talking about ascending to a higher being. It's about grounding. It's about grounding. It's about putting yourself down at the ground and humbling. And the greater you get, the higher you ascend, the lower you sit to the ground, which is huge in what we teach over in Zarathustra's work in the ethical journey, which is why Keanu sits so low, is because it's grounding, which is exactly what it is, which is what the Buddha teaches, which is what the ethical journey teaches. It's at the ground. And that's what her spirituality also teaches, her ethical journey teaches, because that's what it is. It's the same journey. So I've been studying I have her Instagram account and I've been studying her interpretation of it because it's the same thing. It's exactly the same thing. And she is just as disgusted at the spiritualists and what they've done with this thing and how they've translated it into their easy bake oven bullshit. And there's a lot of people now who are waking up and they're trying to find their way and they don't know where they're going. And all that's out there is all that toxic noise of garbage. And if that's for you, okay. But understand that that's what you've got. And there's a lot of people who, when they find the ethical journey, it's a completely different creature, completely different. So effective immediately, I am completely severing all ties with the spiritual realm. And I'm completely severing myself from that culture. It's garbage. The quality is too dragging through the sewers low for my standards. And it is absolutely at this point a mockery of the ethical journey. So I am turning everything over to, this is the ethical journey, and we're talking about psychological physics, which gives you all of your emotions, which gives you all of your sensations, which gives you all of your perspective and your visions. It's all of that. And we're going to talk about that. That's what we cover a lot here. And that's what a lot of what I do focuses on. This really puts it in a sound space. So, and we tie it all into atomic health, physiology, biology, of course, anatomy. And then it goes right back to physics, and it goes into the helix with the DNA, the RNA, and the LNA. So that's solid. I feel really, really solid in this. That makes me very happy. So there's ethical health that is also covered, and it's very much, the vocabulary is very different because the vocabulary is true to the physics, corresponds to the physics, and it also corresponds to the common perspective. That way the second, third, fourths, and fifths can understand what I'm saying. That's a huge piece of this, is you guys will be able to understand what I'm saying. So we'll be able to translate it for that. And I think that was my problem. I do speak spiritual language. I had to study their language to understand what they were saying. And when I understood it, it's just arrogance and ego saturated in physics talk. But they've botched the physics, so it's atrocious. Like I said, sewage quality. It's garbage. So we use the clean quality. It's the highest of standards, and we have developed Abstractic to develop that language to set the standard so that you can look this stuff easily up in the physics space, locate what you need to, and you'll get your answers right away. Very, very clean. And it's all 100% backed by all the science over here. So I feel good establishing this quality standards and setting that standard, and that bar is huge. This is what we completely revolve around, is setting that standard. So we're defining it, we're putting it here, and this is it right here. I am intolerant of spiritual people who come into this space and try and tell me what they think. I am intolerant of that crap. So I don't affiliate myself with those people. Science is God here, as in the information that science has used to translate Mother Nature's truth, which is fact, which is backed by science, is God here. People's ego and perspective on what they think Mother Nature is without any of the actual scientific study of what Mother Nature is, I have no tolerance for that. They can go over there with their easy bake ovens. So is it condescending? No, it is absolutely disgusted at how they have taken something so beautiful and ethical and have dragged it through the sewers for their own agenda, just like a Roman Christian. Filth. I have no honor. I have no respect for the degradation that they have done to something so absolutely breathtaking as the ethical journey. So yeah, That is what they have done, in my opinion. In my logical deduction, is pure dishonor to something that's absolutely beautiful. And they are contradicting everything that they are supposed to be representing, which makes them no different than everything that they say that they are against. Yeah. So I am defined. Thank you. And may the kindest of words always find you.